I am here in my tiny Atmos theater, and today I am going to be talking about my Zidoos. What is a Zidoo? Zidoo. This is a media player that basically plays almost anything you can imagine. I've gone over the spec sheet, I've gone over the technical details, and honestly, I would be surprised if there's anything this thing can't do as far as playing different media formats and how to access those media formats. So, what I'm going to be talking about today is, first of all, kind of from a high level, what does the Zidoo do? And then also how I use my Zidoos. And then the main differences between their base model, the Z9X 8K, and the UHD 8000, and kind of the different use cases and why it would make sense to go one way versus another way and vice versa. So, to talk about those three things. So, first of all, what does the Zidoo do? So, the Zidoo, it basically, like I say, it plays all media formats. And so, if you have files, whether it be audio or video or audio video files, so movies, music, any kind of media that's in a digital format, the Zidoo will play it and will present it on your TV screen, through your speakers, etc. That's it from a very high level. So far, I have not encountered any file formats that it won't play. Now, I've only had mine for a few months, but so far, it's done everything I've needed it to do. Now, full disclosure, I purchased the Z9X 8K a few months ago. I made a video about that where I kind of did a compare and contrast with the Kaleidoscape system and kind of how they are similar and how they are different. And then Zidoo sent me for review the UHD 8000. So I purchased the Z9X, and Zidoo provided me with the UHD 8000 for compare and review. So it's that's kind of the situation there. Now, I have a situation where I wanted to rip all of my 4Ks and Blu-rays and have them available to stream in my home theaters. I have two home theaters. I have my basement dedicated home theater, and then I have my, what I like to call, my tiny home theater here that I've built in a bedroom. And the Zidoos are fantastic for streaming all of my media because I keep all of my discs stored in a shelf system in my basement. But if I wanted to play any of those discs up here in my upstairs theater, I would have to go downstairs, get the disc, come up here, put it in the player, etc. But with the Zidoo, I am able to stream all of those discs from either the basement theater or the bedroom theater. And the way I'm able to do that is because I ripped all of my discs and I store them on a PC that I have in my basement, and it is connected to my home network. And then my Zidoos, my two Zidoo units, are connected to my home network as well. And so they are able to remotely access those files and then stream them to my screens, which is nice because then all of my discs, all of my media files are stored in one location, and then the Zidoo units remotely access them. It's super slick and it's super handy. And the interface for the Zidoo is awesome. It's super snappy. It's very responsive. It's gorgeous. It looks beautiful. The thumbnails, you have the dedicated thumbnail for each movie that you have. And then whichever movie you have selected, there's a background image that's kind of blurred out. It just kind of creates like a nice overall pleasant viewing experience just for the interface, which is great. So that's how I use my Zidoos. Now, here's the thing. Initially, I was going to put my new UHD 8000 in the upstairs theater, and then keep my Z9X down in the basement. The problem with that is I'm a little limited on space up here in the tiny theater. Not just limited in space, but also limited on weight. My shelf system is pretty well maxed out with my various amplifiers and speakers and the AVR, the Onkyo AVR. These two amplifiers, the external amplifiers that I use the Outlaw Audio amplifiers, the 7000X and the 5000X. They weigh a lot. One of my viewers actually, I couldn't find how much they weighed. This is totally aside, but one of my viewers commented and they said the 5000X weighs 50 pounds and the 7000X weighs 61 pounds. And I believe it. They are super heavy. Anyways, I'm maxed out up here. So I brought the Z9X because it is so much smaller up here and it fits perfectly on the corner. It just sits on the corner of one of my amplifiers. And the UHD8000, I'm kind of getting into now kind of the differences between the two units. The UHD8000, it comes with rack mount ears. So you can actually mount it directly in a rack, which is what I have done in my basement. And it is, it's just so clean and it fits in there so well. And it looks really sharp. It's got this really nice kind of scalloped or wavy type aluminum piece on the front that looks really nice, and then it just sets in there in the rack and it's just really sharp. It's really clean and I really like it there. So the UHD 8000 fits perfectly downstairs. The Z9X fits perfectly upstairs. Now, what other differences are there between the two units? The most obvious differences between the two units are that the Z9X does not have the capacity to hold an internal hard drive. And by a hard drive, I mean a drive to store media. It does come with a cable that you can plug into the outside of the Z9X, and then on the other end of that cable, you could plug in like a 3.5-inch hard drive. But then the hard drive would be kind of just hanging out loose next to the Z9X. Whereas the UHD has two internal drive bays. They're dedicated. The front of the device flips down, and then the drive bays open up, and you can physically insert two 3.5-inch hard drives into those bays, close it back up, and then they are sealed away and invisible, which is really, really nice. Now, I do want to point out that the limitation on the hard drives is it does max out at 16 terabytes. And this goes for the Z9X as well as the UHD 8000. You can only connect up to a 16 terabyte hard drive to those connections. So that means you can connect up one 16 terabyte hard drive to the Z9X, and you can put in two 16 terabyte hard drives in the UHD 8000. So with those two hard drives in the UHD 8000, you can actually have a total storage amount of 32 terabytes, which that is a lot of storage. That can hold a lot of movies. So that is, those are two main differences between the two. Also, another difference between the two is that the UHD 8000 has dual HDMI outputs. And the advantage of this is that you can separate the video from the audio to reduce interference. So you can send the video out one HDMI port and then send the audio out a separate HDMI port. So if you have a receiver that can receive your video in one input and your audio in through a different input, you can make use of that. Or if you want to say you want to send your video directly to your TV and then you want to send the audio to your receiver, you could do that. And the idea is to eliminate interference between those two. Another difference between the two units is that the UHD8000 actually has the circuitry to process your audio and send it out to two channels. So if you decided you wanted to have a two-channel system and you didn't want to mess with the receiver, you didn't want to mess with anything else like that, it actually has two outputs, left and a right, and it has both RCA unbalanced and XLR balanced. And you send those out to external amps and then from there to your two speakers, which that's pretty cool if you wanted to go that route. Now, me personally, I do all of my audio and video processing through an AVR in my upstairs theater and through a dedicated Anthem AVM70 processor in my basement. So I don't have any need for that. I don't have any use for using that. I run everything through my AVR and processor. But if you have a situation where that would make sense, then maybe the UHD 8000 is for you. If you don't, maybe you could get away with just having the Z9X. Now, as far as internal processing, the chipset that they use, the amount of RAM, it's all identical. Actually, let me make a correction. The Z9X has 6 gigabytes of DDR4 RAM, and the UHD has 8 gigabytes of DDR4 RAM. Other than that, they use the same chipset, the same processor, etc. Now, this is something that I want to make a point here. This is something that I did not anticipate. When I play my Blu-ray, now I'm not talking about 4K discs, I'm talking about my Blu-ray discs. When I play my Blu-ray discs through my PS5, sometimes they look not great. Then I bought the Panasonic UB420 dedicated Blu-ray player. It also plays 4K discs. I saw an improvement of playing my my Blu-ray discs through that Panasonic player over my PS5. It was an improvement. Then, when I got the Zidoo Z9X, I ripped those 4Ks, stored them on the hard drive in the PC, and then streamed them through the Z9X over my network to my TV. And I saw a significant improvement in the video quality of that over the Panasonic player. Now, I don't know exactly what's going on here. I don't know if it's a settings issue. Honestly, I don't know what exactly is happening. But what I do know for a fact is that the picture looks better. It absolutely looks better. I was like, whoa, this is so much. And where I notice it the most is in skin tones. Sometimes the skin tones are a little too saturated, a little too reddish, especially on the PS5, but even still a little bit with the Panasonic player. But when I stream them over the Zidoo, it looks, the coloring looks perfect. It looks flawless. I don't know if there's some internal upscaling that is happening. I don't know. I just know that the result is better. If anybody has any insight into that, please let me know. I would be very curious to know if there's some settings issue that I have with my Panasonic or PS5 that is causing those, and if there's a way to clear that up. But for now, I'm extremely happy with what the Zidoo does. So those are the main differences. Now, I recommend, if you're at all curious about this and are interested and think that maybe this might be something that you want to use, I definitely recommend going to their website. They've got a full detailed list of all of the specs, all of the technical details. You can compare and contrast the different models and see what would work for you. Every person's situation is different, but I think for most people, the Z9X, if you have an external method of storing the data, if you have like I do, I have a PC, or if you have a NAS, a network attached storage device, if you have something like that to store your media on, I think the Z9X may be the best option for you because it's small, it's compact, it has all of the horsepower that you need to stream over your network, and it doesn't have to store anything. If you do want to store the media inside the Zidoo, I think the UHD8000 may be the better option. Now, Zidoo also has kind of an intermediate option that is a step up from the Z9X, and I'll put that information up here. I'll show a picture of it and the model name. I don't know it off the top of my head, but you can see that it does have a single internal drive bay where you could put a hard drive into. So if you didn't need to have two hard drive bays, if you could get away with one, then maybe this intermediate option might be the better option because it's significantly cheaper than the UHD8000. The UHD8000 is $1499 and the Z9X is $279. And I'll put the pricing of the intermediate option up on the screen, so you can kind of decide which one would work best for you. If you use like an AVR or a processor for all of your video and audio processing, and you don't need to run the audio out directly to speakers, then you probably could get away without getting the UHD8000. You could get just the Z9X or the step up from the Z9X. So anyways, that is the Zidoo. I love them. I think they're great. I am so happy with how they work in my theaters, and maybe they might work for you too. Thanks for watching.